The sound echoed before I even felt the sting. For a second everything froze, time, thought, breath. I stood in the middle of our kitchen, Sunday roast in the oven, the scent of potatoes crisping in butter, and I watched my children's faces change in front of me. Emma's mouth formed a small, shocked "oh," while Tyler's hands curled into tight fists. My husband, David, still had his hand raised, his wedding ring catching the sunlight that streamed through the window, the same ring I placed on his finger 12 years ago, believing in forever. "You're nothing but a pathetic loser," he spat, his voice trembling with rage I barely recognized. My phone lay face up on the counter, the glowing message still visible. I miss feeling your touch. Last night was amazing. Signed Sarah Miller. I didn't know a Sarah Miller, but apparently my husband did. And just like that, 15 years of marriage collapsed under a few careless words and one cruel slap. I stood frozen, the pain in my cheek growing sharper by the second. Around me, everything suddenly felt unfamiliar. The family portraits on the wall, the birthday photos, the vacation shots, all of it now looked like a lie. I wondered how many of those smiles had been fake. "Mommy!" Emma's soft voice broke the silence. She was only 8, too young to understand what she'd just seen but old enough to feel the shift in the air. Tyler, older at 12, didn't speak. He just stared at his father like he was looking at a stranger, and maybe, in that moment he was. "Both of you go to your rooms," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. They hesitated. Emma's eyes filled with confusion, Tyler's with something heavier, something protective. For the first time I saw it. The understanding that sometimes even parents need defending. "Go!" David snapped, and the children jumped. They ran up the stairs, but not before Tyler gave me one last look. It was the kind of look no child should ever have to give their mother. A silent promise to protect, no matter the cost. The slam of bedroom doors echoed overhead, and David's anger shifted. His chest rose and fell as he ran his hand through his still damp hair. "If you hadn't been snooping through my phone," he began. The justification in his tone made my stomach twist. "This is your fault, you know. You brought this on yourself." The words hit harder than his hand had, because somewhere deep down a small part of me almost believed him. 15 years of subtle corrections. 15 years of, "I'm only saying this because I love you." It had laid a foundation of doubt. But something was rising in me now. Maybe it was the sight of my children's fear. Maybe it was the ache in my cheek. Maybe the universe had finally decided I'd had enough. I turned off the kitchen faucet I'd forgotten was running and watched the last soap bubbles swirl down the drain. "How long?" I asked, not looking at him. "How long have you been seeing her?" "Don't do this, Catherine," he said. His tone softened into something condescending. "You're emotional. We'll talk when you've calmed down." I turned to face him. "How long?" I asked again. He didn't answer right away. I could see the calculation in his eyes. David was always good at weighing options. That's what made him successful at his investment firm, knowing how much to admit, how to twist the truth to suit him. "It's not what you think," he said at last, stepping toward me. I stepped back. His eyes darkened. "Sarah is just a friend. You're blowing this out of proportion." But I'd seen the message. I knew where he'd been the night before. Working late, he said. I'd kept his dinner warm for 2 hours before giving up and going to bed alone again. And now I couldn't even look at that pot roast without feeling sick. "I'm going to check on the children," I said. "Don't follow me." There was a warning in my voice I didn't recognize. Maybe it belonged to someone new. Someone who was done pretending. "Remember everything I've done for you," David called after me. "Everything you'd be throwing away." I paused on the landing, my hand on the banister. Through the window, I saw our perfectly trimmed lawn, the shiny cars in the driveway, the life that looked perfect from the outside. He was right. I would be losing a lot. But as I touched my cheek, still burning with the print of his hand, I knew I'd already lost something far more important. The illusion that love should hurt. I didn't know it yet, but that message from Sarah Miller was only the beginning. That name, that woman, would pull a thread that would unravel not just my marriage, but a web of lies and danger far greater than a simple affair. But before I could uncover any of that, I had 2 frightened children to hold, and a strength to find that I didn't yet know lived inside me. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay in Emma's bed, her small form curled against me, listening to every creak and whisper in the house. Sounds that once comforted me now felt like warnings. Twice I heard David's steps approach the door, only to stop short. Tyler sat silently in the hallway doing his homework, acting like he wasn't guarding us, but I knew he was. His quiet presence broke my heart even more than the slap had. It was almost 3 in the morning when I finally slipped downstairs. The house was dark except for the glow from the oven clock. I sat at the kitchen table, our table, where we'd celebrated birthdays and planned vacations, where I once thought we were happy. I opened my laptop with shaking hands. I didn't know what I was looking for, but years of managing the household had given me access to nearly everything. Passwords, accounts, bills. David always said I was good with details. He just never thought I'd use them against him. The name Miller Consulting Services appeared on credit card statements again and again. Weekly charges, coffee shops, hotel stays, Ubers. And then I saw something that didn't make sense. Regular $$25,000 transfers from our joint account to that name. Bi-weekly like a salary. I did the math. That was over $500,000 in just 1 year. For what? You shouldn't be doing that. His voice cut through the dark like a knife. Jump. David stood in the doorway, still dressed in yesterday's clothes, watching me. What is Miller Consulting Services? I asked, barely able to get the words out. It's complicated, he said, stepping closer. Business stuff you wouldn't understand. Try me, I said, my voice shaking but firm. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're paying your mistress with our family's money. His expression shifted, just for a second, from irritation to fear. Keep your voice down. You'll wake the kids. I laughed. It was bitter and sharp, unfamiliar coming from my mouth. You mean the kids who watched you hit their mother? He sat across from me, running his hands through his hair again. That same rehearsed gesture meant to show stress, not guilt. I shouldn't have done that, he said. I lost my temper. But there are things going on that are bigger than you or me. What things? Yes. Just stop digging, Catherine, he said. For your own good. For the kids' sake. Let this go. We can fix it. I'll end it with Sarah. We'll go to counseling. Just step away from the computer. I stared at the screen. The numbers, the transfers, the accounts I didn't recognize. $500,000, David. Where is it going? He stood suddenly, his chair scraping across the floor. I'm trying to protect you. From what? Asked. The truth. He slammed his hand down. Flinched. He saw it and softened his voice, leaning in like he used to when he wanted to manipulate me into forgiving him. Please, Catherine. Trust me. One last time. Delete the browser history. Close the computer. Go back to bed. I looked at him and saw what I hadn't allowed myself to see all these years. Not a partner, not even a man I once loved, but a stranger wearing the skin of someone I trusted. I don't think I can do that, I said. His face turned to stone. He snatched the laptop from me and slammed it shut. I'm going to hold on to this for now. For your own good. David. Go. Bed. I stood slowly, my legs trembling, but as I passed him I turned and said, the worst part isn't the affair. It's that you really believe you can still control me. He grabbed my arm, not hard, not soft either. Just enough to show me he could. Everything I've done has been for this family. Someday you'll understand that. I pulled away and found Tyler still sitting at the top of the stairs. Mom, he whispered. Are you okay? I walked him back to his room, tucked him in like it was a normal night, and lied. I'm fine, sweetheart. Everything's going to be fine. But I knew it wasn't true. What David didn't know was that I had already emailed everything to myself. Every file, every transfer, every clue. And in those files, buried deep in the numbers, was a name I never expected to see. Phoenix Holdings LLC. With a Manhattan address. The building where my sister Rachel worked. That night I barely slept. I held Emma close and stared at the ceiling until sunrise, wondering what Phoenix Holdings had to do with my husband, with Sarah, with Rachel, and whether the message I received just before dawn. Asterisk, we need to talk. I'm not who David told you I am. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m. Riverside Park. Come alone. Asterisk was a warning or a trap. Signed, Sarah Miller. I nearly didn't go. Every part of me screamed that it was foolish to meet David's so-called mistress alone in a park after everything that had happened. But as I drove the kids to school that morning, ignoring David's forced smile and insistence that he take them instead, I knew I had to. Something about Sarah's message felt different. Calculated, yes, but not threatening. Like someone trying to slip me the truth without alerting the monster sleeping beside me. Remember what we practiced? I asked Tyler as he climbed out of the car. He nodded with a seriousness no 12-year-old should ever have. Call Aunt Rachel if anything feels wrong. And don't let Dad pick you up unless I text the code word. Emma hugged me tighter than usual, her strawberry-scented hair brushing against my face. That smell, so small and innocent, brought tears to my eyes. Everything about our life looked normal, but I could feel the cracks spreading underneath. The park was nearly empty at 10 a.m. on a Monday. A few joggers, some nannies with strollers, an old man feeding birds. I chose a bench with a full view in all directions. Another thing I never had to think about until yesterday. My cheek still ached faintly where David had struck me. Concealed under makeup, but not forgotten. Catherine. The voice came from behind me. Turned. A woman in her early 30s, sharply dressed in a business suit, sat beside me without waiting for an invitation. Her eyes scanned the park carefully. We don't have much time. David doesn't know I'm here. It needs to stay that way. I stared at her. You're Sarah Miller. She nodded. I'm a forensic accountant with the FBI. We've been investigating your husband's firm for the past 18 months. The words didn't register at first. Blinked. What? I thought you were a mistress. Her laugh was bitter. That's exactly what we wanted David to think. That message was bait. We needed to see how he'd react when cornered. We didn't expect him to become violent. That wasn't supposed to happen. I gripped the bench to steady myself. What is going on? Sarah reached into her leather folder and pulled out a file. Your husband and his partners are running a Ponzi scheme. Multiple shell companies. Miller Consulting Services is one. Phoenix Holdings is another. No. The word came out weak. But even as I said it, the puzzle pieces were starting to align. The endless business trips. The sudden influx of wealth he claimed came from smart investing. The way he insisted on managing everything. The money, the accounts, even my inheritance. It gets worse, Sarah said gently. We found evidence that your sister Rachel's investment firm is unknowingly processing some of these transactions. She could be implicated when this collapses. And it will collapse. No. She doesn't know anything, I said quickly. She can't. We don't think she does. But unless we can prove she's innocent, her career could be over. A jogger passed close to the bench. Sarah quickly tucked the file away. We need someone on the inside, Catherine. Someone he trusts. Someone who can give us access to the information we can't get with a warrant. You want me to spy on him? Plant something. My voice shook. What do you think I am? I think you're a mother, she said quietly. And I think you're starting to realize how deep this goes. When it all breaks, accounts will be frozen. Credit cards. Everything. Do you have any money in your name? The answer was no. Course it was no. David had always insisted on handling everything. It's just easier that way, he'd said. Better for taxes. What about college funds? The house. Everything you've built is tied to stolen money. And if your sister's caught in the middle, could barely breathe. And the kids. What happens to them if? That's why we're here now, Sarah said. To protect them. But we can't do it without you. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. Instead, I stood too fast, the world spinning around me. You're asking me to destroy my husband. I'm asking you to save your children, she said. Because the truth is, if we don't stop him, he will destroy all of you. I turned to leave. I didn't know if I believed her. I didn't know what I believed anymore. Then a woman sat beside me on the bench, middle-aged, wearing tennis clothes and a baseball cap. She didn't look at me as she spoke. Agent Miller is right, she said softly. I was David's wife before you. The bruises fade, but his promises don't change. I turned to her, stunned, but she was already walking away, blending back into the park crowd like she'd never been there at all. I looked down at the burner phone Sarah had slipped into my hand and realized something with sickening clarity. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and my husband was about to be ripped apart. And this was only the beginning. I walked back to my car in a daze, clutching the burner phone like it might explode. The quiet hum of the park, the soft chatter of strollers and joggers. It all felt unreal, like I'd stepped outside my life and into someone else's nightmare. I didn't answer David's texts. I didn't return his calls. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, not even when I got home and locked every door behind me. Then, just before noon, my phone buzzed again. David. Asterisk, where are you? Tried calling the house. We need to talk about last night. Asterisk, I stared at the screen. His words were laced with concern, with control, with that same manipulation he always used when he felt power slipping away. Another text followed. Asterisk, the children miss you. Come home and we can work this out. Asterisk. He knew exactly what buttons to push. He always had. Guilt, shame, fear, love. But now those same buttons felt different. Like anchors. Like reminders of what I was truly fighting for. The burner phone buzzed next. Asterisk, we need to meet again. Urgent. Same park. Duck Pond. The files you copied. There's more to this than we thought. Asterisk, I hadn't told Sarah, but after David had taken my laptop, I'd retrieved a backup copy of everything from our cloud. Every transaction. Every email. And something had caught my eye in those files. Second company name. Phoenix Holdings. Manhattan address I knew by heart. Rachel's firm. I hadn't told Rachel anything yet. Couldn't. Sarah's warning rang in my head. Asterisk, trust no one. Not even your sister. Not yet. Asterisk, but it was getting harder to follow that rule, especially when my sister was unknowingly caught in the middle of something that could destroy her. Then another text came through. This one from Rachel. Asterisk cases. Weird question. David asked to meet for lunch today. Says it's urgent. Should I be worried? Asterisk. My heart slammed against my ribs. He was going to her. He knew I'd found something. He was trying to contain the damage. I made 3 calls before I could even think straight. The first was to Rachel. Don't go, I said the second she answered. Don't meet him. Please. Just trust me and cancel. What's going on? She asked, alarm creeping into her voice. I'll explain everything. Just, please, Rachel. Not today. She hesitated. Okay. The second call was to the kids' school. I arranged for them to stay in aftercare. Somewhere safe. Somewhere David couldn't reach them. The third call was to David's office. I used my calmest voice. The one he was used to. The one he didn't question. Hey. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Rachel called. Said Mom had a fall. She's heading to the hospital. I'll meet her there. He replied immediately. Asterisk, I'll cancel lunch. Come pick you up. Asterisk. No. I texted back quickly, then corrected myself. Asterisk, no, you have that Carter meeting. I'll update you. Just focus on work. Asterisk. Lie. Another lie. I was getting good at it. 20 minutes later, I reached the duck pond. Sarah was already there, tossing breadcrumbs to birds like she hadn't just shaken my entire world. She didn't look at me when she spoke. The files from last night, it's worse than we thought. David's not just running a Ponzi scheme. I waited, barely breathing. He's laundering money for human traffickers. The world tilted again. What? Sarah's voice stayed even. Those business trips to Miami. They weren't just for meeting clients. We've traced shell companies connected to properties used in trafficking. Young women brought in under fake modeling contracts or hospitality jobs. Their families invest money through David's firm, believing it secures their daughters' futures. I turned away just in time to vomit into a nearby trash can. My stomach churned from more than nausea. He's been building this for years, Sarah said. And now with Phoenix Holdings involved. The Carter account, I said suddenly. He closed it yesterday. Said it was his biggest commission. Sarah's eyes darkened. Mrs. Carter's granddaughter disappeared 3 months ago. Took a modeling job in Miami. I felt my knees buckle. Catherine, she said quietly, there's more. The email you found, the one about Rachel and the containment protocol. They've used that term before. The last person who started asking questions had a fatal car crash. Brake lines cut. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was Rachel. David's here. He's in my office. Says Mom's fine. There's no hospital visit. What's going on? Panic exploded inside me. He's with her. Right now. Sarah didn't hesitate. She pulled out her radio and called for backup. Montgomery Investments. 442 Madison. 15th floor. Team 1 move now. But I was already running. Catherine, wait. Sarah called after me. We'll handle this. No, I shouted. You see a case. I see my sister. Traffic blurred as I sped through Manhattan, ignoring red lights, weaving through horns and shouting drivers. I thought only of Rachel. My sister. My protector. The woman who held my hand through every heartbreak and stood beside me at my wedding. My wedding to the man who might now be planning to kill her. 15 minutes of driving felt like a lifetime. When I reached her building, I did the only thing I could think of. I pulled the fire alarm. As people began evacuating, I slipped inside. I didn't trust the elevator. I took the stairs, 15 flights, 2 at a time, my lungs burning, my legs screaming. Outside Rachel's office, I heard shouting. Her voice. Dark. Angry. You're insane. I'm calling the police. David's voice followed. Come cruel. With what phone? Who's going to believe you? The hysterical woman making wild accusations. Through the glass wall I saw her. Rachel, cornered against her desk. David between her and the door. In his hand, something shiny. A letter opener. What happened next felt like it happened in slow motion. Rachel's eyes widened when she saw me. David began to turn. The letter opener glinted in the light. I didn't think. I swung my handbag, heavy with the stolen laptop I'd grabbed from David's office the night before, and hit him squarely in the back of the head. He stumbled. The weapon clattered to the ground. Rachel vaulted over the desk and into my arms. We ran. Behind us, David's voice echoed through the hallway. You have no idea what you've done. Neither of you will be safe. Not ever. But we didn't stop running. Not until we hit the street and saw flashing red and blue lights. Sarah was waiting. Agents poured into the building. David was gone. And Rachel turned to me, eyes wide with fear. What the hell is going on? I didn't answer her at first. Couldn't. The truth was too big, too tangled, too cruel to speak in one breath. So instead I pulled her into a hug, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume, the same one our mother used to wear. I had to steady myself because everything was falling apart, and yet somehow it all made perfect, horrifying sense. Rachel's voice cracked. He said things about girls in Miami. About some business I didn't understand. Catherine, he looked at me like he wasn't even human. I opened my mouth to answer, but my phone buzzed in my hand. Text. From an unknown number. You should have trusted me to handle things, Bella. Now I have to take care of both my girls. But first, maybe I should visit our children. Show them what happens when mommy breaks daddy's trust. Asterisk. The world tilted beneath me. Sarah looked over my shoulder and saw the message. She didn't hesitate. She was already barking orders into her radio, calling in teams to the children's school. But I wasn't listening anymore, because in that moment something shifted inside me. All this time I'd been trying to hide, to protect, to survive. But now I realized. Asterisk asterisk, you don't beat a monster by hiding from it. You beat it by hunting it down. Asterisk asterisk. I turned to Rachel. Her face was pale, her hands shaking, but her eyes were locked onto her laptop, which she'd managed to grab in the escape. "Catherine," she whispered, "I think I found something. About his first wife. The one who supposedly died in a car crash 5 years ago." Froze. "She's alive." Rachel nodded slowly. "And you're not going to believe where she is." We were in the car within minutes, heading toward the safe house where the kids were now being escorted under heavy security. Sarah stayed behind to coordinate agents. Rachel rode beside me, reading documents from her tablet, piecing together a puzzle we didn't know we'd been part of for over a decade. "Her name was Jennifer Reeves," Rachel said. "Top of her class at Columbia. Worked at Goldman Sachs. Then she married David and suddenly disappeared." The pattern echoed like footsteps behind me. Could feel it now. The subtle control. The way David had encouraged me to stop working. "You don't need the stress," he'd said. "I can provide everything." Rachel's voice tightened. "The car accident was staged. She's been living under an alias in witness protection. She tried to expose him 5 years ago. Had the evidence. But no one believed her. Everyone thought she was just a bitter ex-wife having a breakdown." I gripped the wheel harder. "Where is she now?" Rachel looked up from the tablet. "Working at a women's shelter in Boston. And recently, 3 trafficking victims were found there." My phone rang. Sarah's voice came through the car speakers. "We've secured the kids. They're safe. But Catherine, David's gone dark. Phone's off. No card activity. He's either hiding or hunting." "I know which one," I said, my voice flat. "What about Jennifer? Do you know about her?" There was a pause. "We've been working with her for years," Sarah said. "She's the one who helped build the case. But we never had enough evidence. Not until now." We pulled up to the safe house just as a black SUV with tinted windows parked across the street. My heart leapt, until the door opened and Sarah stepped out, followed by 2 armed agents. Inside I found Emma and Tyler sitting at a small table, coloring quietly. But when they saw me, both ran into my arms. "Mom!" Emma sobbed into my shoulder. Tyler stood back a step, trying to act strong, but I could see the fear in his eyes. "You're safe," I whispered, more to myself than them. Sarah approached, her face grim. "We need to keep moving. He won't stop now. Not until he feels like he's in control again." Before we could respond, the burner phone buzzed. A new message, this time from another unknown number. Asterisk, "Hello, Catherine. I think it's time we met. I'm closer than you think. Jennifer." Asterisk. I looked up. She was already there. The woman in tennis clothes from the park bench. The one who warned me. The one I hadn't believed. "I've been watching," she said quietly. "To make sure you didn't make the same mistakes I did. But now we're out of time. David has a backup plan. He always does." She looked at my children with something between sorrow and rage. "There's something you need to see." She pulled out her phone and pressed play. Video began. David in his office, seated across from someone just out of frame. The timestamp was from 3 years ago. "It's a simple choice," David said. "Either your daughter takes the modeling job in Miami, or your entire family loses everything. I own your mortgage, your business loans. One signature, and it all goes away." My stomach turned. "That's Mrs. Carter's son-in-law," Jennifer said. But the next video was worse. It showed meeting after meeting, family after family, desperate people. David playing savior and destroyer at the same time. Then the last clip played. David in a restaurant, meeting with someone I recognized. My father. 2 weeks before his sudden heart attack. No, I whispered. Yes, Jennifer said. Your father found out. About everything. Not just the Ponzi scheme. The trafficking. The money laundering. Politicians. The judges. The entire network. He was ready to go to the FBI. But the heart attack. They made it slow, she said. They wanted to know who else he told before they let him die. Sarah was already on the phone, calling in forensic teams, ordering an exhumation. But I could barely hear her. Because now I understood why my father looked so afraid in those last weeks. Why David insisted on arranging the funeral. Why I had been kept sedated, foggy, numb. David hadn't just stolen money. He had stolen lives. And I had allowed him into mine. I looked at my children. At the quiet strength in Tyler's eyes. At the softness still left in Emma's. Whatever it took, I would protect them. Whatever it cost, I would finish what my father started. Jennifer reached out, her hand firm on my arm. There's something else, she said. Something I've never told anyone. But now I have to. The air in the safe house felt heavy, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. My children were sitting nearby, whispering to Rachel, unaware of the storm building again. He's working with people worse than traffickers, Jennifer continued. People who won't just let this go. Politicians, judges, international players. We always knew David was part of something bigger, but the proof was always out of reach. What proof? I asked, already bracing myself. She looked directly into my eyes. Your father found it. He hid it. And David never found it because he looked in the wrong place. Where? I whispered. In his love letters, she said. To your mother. The words hit like thunder. My mother died when I was 10, I said, my voice hollow. Dad kept her letters in a box under his bed. David cleared out the house after the funeral. He said he burned all the personal things. Jennifer shook her head. He burned the wrong box. Your father gave me the real one. He knew David would come for everything. He told me if anything ever happened to him, the truth would be hidden in box 2311 at First National Bank. Under your mother's maiden name. I felt the key before I remembered it. Buried in my jewelry drawer, the brass tag still attached. A part of me had kept it without knowing why. Now I did. Understood. We're going to the bank. Sarah stepped forward. We'll secure the location. No one gets in or out without our team knowing. Jennifer, stay here with Rachel and the kids. Jennifer nodded, her expression firm. Be careful. And Catherine, whatever's in those letters, it's the last piece. The final nail. I nodded once. I'm done being afraid. The safety deposit box felt cold in my hand as the bank clerk led me into the vault. Sarah's agents were stationed inside the building, pretending to be customers, guards, tellers. Every detail was covered. Yet my heart still pounded in my chest like it knew something even worse was coming. Box 2311, I told the clerk. Elizabeth Blackwood. She guided me to the box, unlocked it, and left me alone. Inside, I found a small bundle of yellowed letters, tied with a blue ribbon. They smelled like my childhood, ink and lavender and old paper. I unwrapped them with shaking fingers. Mixed among them were typed sheets, coded notations, lists of names and account numbers woven between sentences of love and memory. Then I saw the envelope addressed in my father's handwriting. For Catherine. When the truth comes out. My fingers trembled as I opened it. My dearest daughter. Asterisk, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And it means you've finally discovered who David really is. I tried to protect you. I tried to warn you about Michael. I wanted to tell you everything, but David threatened Rachel. He threatened you, asterisk. But before I died, I discovered one more thing. About your mother. The words blurred in front of me. I forced myself to keep reading. Asterisk, her accident wasn't an accident. David was there that day. Not the man you know now, but a boy. His father was driving the car that forced your mother off the mountain road. They covered it up, called it black ice, their first crime together. Asterisk. Asterisk. David didn't come into your life by accident. He's been weaving this for years. Your marriage, your children, everything. He wanted to finish what his father started. He wanted power, but more than that, he wanted bloodlines to cross. He believed your union was destiny. Asterisk. Asterisk. The evidence in these letters will expose everything. Use it wisely. And Catherine, remember you are your mother's daughter. She was the strongest person I ever knew. That strength lives in you. Asterisk. Asterisk. All my love. Dad. Asterisk. I sat back in the metal chair, clutching the letters to my chest, barely breathing. Then my phone buzzed again. A message from a number I didn't recognize. Asterisk. Found what you were looking for, Bella. Did Daddy's little surprise make your hands shake? Come home. Let me explain everything. Asterisk. Another ping. Asterisk. After all, we're connected by more than just marriage. We're connected by blood. By death. By destiny. Asterisk. The floor seemed to drop beneath me. And then I remembered. David's father, dead 2 years ago. Heart attack. Just like my dad. But what if it wasn't just coincidence? What if someone made sure David's father couldn't talk? Pattern was there. Always had been. But I'd refused to see it. I stood up. Sarah, I said into the earpiece, my voice hard and clear. David's on his way. He knows. I see him, she replied instantly. Silver sedan. Pulling up now. Jennifer's voice cut in over the line. Catherine, don't let him bait you. That's what he wants. He wants you angry. He wants you off balance. But I wasn't off balance anymore. Because now I understood. This wasn't just about control. It wasn't about love or even money. It was about legacy. A twisted inheritance passed down from father to son. And I wasn't going to be a part of it anymore. David stepped out of his car, perfectly dressed, calm as ever. He smiled when he saw me like we were two lovers meeting for coffee. Hello, Bella, he said softly. Ready to hear the whole story? I walked toward him slowly, the letters in my bag and my father's words echoing in my ears. This was it. The end of his story. The beginning of mine. David stood near the curb like he owned the world. His suit was crisp, his hair perfectly styled, his smile as calm and confident as ever. To anyone passing by, he looked like a loving husband coming to take his wife home. But I knew better. I knew what that smile hid. I knew what that calm meant. Come home, Catherine, he said, his voice gentle. Let me explain everything. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. You murdered my mother. He tilted his head like a teacher correcting a student. That wasn't murder, Bella. That was fate. My father loved her. She chose your father instead. Everything I've done was to correct that mistake, to bring our families back together. You call death and manipulation correction. I call it devotion, he said. To you. To our children. To the destiny that was denied to our parents. I took another step toward him, calm, steady. You've been watching me since I was a child. Planning all of this. I knew you before you knew yourself, he said softly, almost lovingly. And I waited. I waited until the time was right. Until Michael was out of the way. There it was. Spoken aloud. My first love. The man who died in a so-called mugging. David had planned it. He'd removed him to make room for himself. For his twisted version of love. You want to know the real difference between us? I asked, pulling my phone from my coat pocket. You think legacy is something you inherit. I think it's something you choose. I turned the phone toward him. A live feed was running. David's offshore accounts were being drained. The funds rerouted. The evidence sent to every major news outlet. Copies archived in cloud drives and sent to international law enforcement. His face cracked for the first time. You taught me well, David, I said. About power. about control, about patience. He lunged, fast and sudden, the way he always struck when he thought someone was weaker than him. But this time I didn't step back. This time I didn't cower. I stood my ground. And then, FBI, drop your hands. Don't move. Agents surrounded him in seconds. Sarah's voice cut through the chaos. David froze, his hand inches from my face. He turned his head slowly and looked at me. Not in anger this time, but in something that looked dangerously close to fear. You think this changes anything? He hissed as agents snapped cuffs onto his wrists. You think you've won. I still win. Because now our children get to grow up knowing exactly what kind of woman their mother really is. No, I said quietly. They'll grow up knowing exactly who I am. A woman who stood up to the monster who called himself their father. A woman who broke the cycle. His laugh was hollow. You want truth, Bella. Your precious father wasn't innocent. He knew. He profited. Half that money you're so proud to be returning. Half of it was his. I didn't react. I simply nodded. I know. David flinched. I know how you blackmailed him. How you threatened me and Rachel until he felt like he had no choice but to cooperate. I know how he spent his final years gathering evidence to take you down. Held up my phone. And now, thanks to him, all that money is going back to your victims. Every last dollar. My father died for justice. Yours died trying to cover his sins. David screamed as the agents pulled him away. His voice echoing down the street. You think this is justice? This is betrayal. I took a step forward and looked him in the eye. No, this is truth. Then he played his final card. He looked past me. Tell her, Jennifer. Tell her what you've been hiding. Tell her the real truth about her mother's death. I turned to Jennifer, who had just stepped out of the safe house. Her eyes met mine. She nodded slowly. I already told her, she said gently. Last night while she slept. My heart clenched. There's more, Jennifer said, reaching into her coat. She pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. I found this years ago. Hidden in a box of David's father's belongings. Your mother left a message. Written in her own blood. She placed it in my hands. Faded red-brown letters, barely legible, spelled out 4 words. Catherine, be your own light. Something broke inside me. Not a crack. Not a wound. A breaking open. Like a seed splitting for the first time. I wasn't shattering, I was blooming. David roared behind us. You see. Even in death, she tied us together. Her blood links us forever. No, I whispered. She wasn't tying me to you. She was setting me free. Be your own light, I repeated aloud, my voice clear and steady. Not someone else's shadow. Not someone else's possession. Behind me I heard footsteps. Mom! Tyler's voice broke through the moment. Emma and I. We saw everything. I turned around. They stood beside Rachel, their faces pale but determined. We followed you. We needed to see. We needed to see you fight back. Emma ran to me, tears in her eyes. Did Grandma really write that note? She did, I whispered, hugging them both tightly. She gave me the courage to stand up. And now I'm giving it to you. Over their heads, I watched as David was pushed into the back of an FBI vehicle. For one last moment our eyes met. And in his I saw what he had feared most. Not death, not prison, but irrelevance. The man who spent his life controlling others had finally lost control of his own story. Sarah and Jennifer stood beside me as the car pulled away. Sarah touched my shoulder. It's over. 12 arrests so far. And with the evidence your father left behind, we'll take down the rest. The victims will get their lives back. And the children? I asked quietly. What do I tell them? About who their father really is. Tell them the truth, Jennifer said. Tell them pain doesn't have to become hatred. That survival doesn't mean becoming what hurt you. Tell them their grandmother's story. Their grandfather's courage. And their mother's strength. Later that night, while my children slept in the quiet warmth of the safe house, I sat down to write. Not for revenge. Not even for justice. But for them. Dear Emma and Tyler. There's a story you need to know. About love and lies. About power and freedom. About pain and the choice we all have to end it. It's about your grandmother, who died protecting the light inside me. Your grandfather, who died making sure the truth would survive. Your father, who chose darkness. And your mother, who chose to be her own light instead. My phone buzzed one final time. Message. From Detective Martinez. Found this in your father's things. Thought you should have it. Attached was a photo. A young woman holding a baby. Her smile radiant. Her eyes full of hope. It was my mother. Holding me. Before the crash. Before the control. Before the lies. And now I understood. Her message wasn't just survival. It was legacy. Being your own light doesn't mean burning alone. It means shining bright enough to help others find their way. The sun was rising as I finished writing. New day. A new chapter. A new legacy. One of truth. Of freedom. And finally, of peace. The sun spilled through the blinds in warm golden streaks as I closed the notebook where I'd written my children's story. Not the version David would have told them. Not the lie built on polished smiles and calculated silence. But the truth, raw, painful, and powerful. The truth he had tried so hard to bury under wealth, manipulation, and fear. In the next room, I could hear Emma stirring, her soft steps padding across the floor. Tyler murmured something in his sleep. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I let myself breathe without bracing for what might come next. The weight in my chest, the one I'd carried since the first crack appeared in my perfect life, was still there, but it was different now. It wasn't fear. It was the gravity of purpose. The slow, steady pressure of a woman who had stepped into her own strength. Sarah knocked gently on the safe house door and stepped in. Her face was tired but satisfied. "It's done," she said. "Interpol just confirmed the last offshore account has been seized. 34 arrests worldwide. The ring is broken." I nodded slowly, pressing my palm against my heart. "And the victims? They're being contacted. Safely. Quietly. With support. Thanks to you and your father. Hundreds of people will get their lives back." I didn't cry. Not then. I just closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Dad." Sarah looked at me. "There's still one more thing. We found Jennifer's original affidavit. The one she tried to submit 5 years ago. It's going to help clear Rachel completely." My breath caught. "You mean? She'll be protected. She'll keep her firm. She'll testify if she's willing. But legally she's clean." The relief that washed over me was fierce and blinding. Rachel, my sister, who had stood beside me when I said, "I do," not knowing the man I was marrying had already destroyed the life of another woman. Sarah hesitated, then stepped closer. "There's something else. Something you should consider." I looked up. "Your story. It's not just evidence anymore. It's a survival blueprint. For other women. Other families. We think you should go public." The thought stopped me cold. "I'm not asking for now," she continued. "But when you're ready you could testify, right? Speak out. You could do what David never wanted. Turn your voice into something that empowers others." I didn't answer right away. I thought of the headlines, the scrutiny, the risk. But I also thought of Emma. Tyler. Of the baby I once was, held in my mother's arms, before fate tried to silence us. "Maybe one day," I said. "When the kids are older. When I know they're ready to hear it from me first." Sarah nodded. "We'll be here. When that day comes." She left quietly, and I turned back toward the bedroom. Tyler was awake now, sitting on the edge of the bed, holding something in his hands. It was the note. "Catherine, be your own light." He looked up at me. "Was that really from Grandma?" "Yes," I said softly. "She wrote it for me. But I think she meant it for all of us." "Does it mean we don't need anyone else?" he asked, frowning. I walked over and sat beside him, wrapping my arm around his shoulder. No, sweetheart. It means we don't need to let anyone else decide our worth. We light our own path. And when we're strong enough, we help others light theirs too. He leaned into me. Can I keep it? Of course, I whispered. It's yours now. Later that evening, as Rachel and I made dinner side by side, something simple, something warm, I caught her watching me. There were tears in her eyes, but they didn't fall. I didn't protect you, she said. Not the way I should have. You did, I told her. You didn't even know what you were protecting me from, but you were always there. And you're still here. That's what matters. She smiled, and in that moment we were just sisters again. No secrets, no shadows, just healing. When Emma came running into the kitchen, giggling about something she and Tyler had made with construction paper and glue, I pulled her into a hug so tight she squealed. She handed me a crooked cutout of a sun with glitter glued in the center. It's you, Mommy, she said proudly. You're our light. I didn't cry when David was arrested. I didn't cry when I found out about my father, or when the accounts were frozen, or when I read that blood-stained message from my mother. But I cried then. Because this quiet moment of joy, of freedom, of truth, was everything they had tried to take from me. And I had taken it back. Not through revenge, but through resistance. Not by burning everything down, but by becoming a light that couldn't be dimmed. Somewhere I hoped my mother was smiling. Because her daughter had survived. And more than that, her daughter had learned to shine days past. Not in chaos like before, but in silence. In steadiness. In small, steady steps that felt almost unfamiliar after the storm we had survived. The FBI moved us to a new location, quieter, safer, further away from the life I'd once called home. No gated driveways. No polished floors. Just sunlight in the morning, and the smell of coffee in a kitchen where I no longer felt like a stranger. Emma and Tyler adapted faster than I expected. Kids are like that, resilient in the most astonishing ways. Emma asked 1,000 questions about Grandma, about Grandpa, about the note. Tyler asked fewer. But his questions were sharper. More adult. He wanted to understand the darkness so he could avoid it. I saw it in his eyes. Rachel stayed nearby. Her firm cleared. Her name protected. But something had shifted in her too. She didn't rush to check emails anymore. She didn't bury her panic under meetings and reports. We walked together every evening now, just like when we were girls. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't. But she was there. And so was Jennifer. She wasn't in hiding anymore. The FBI had cleared her records. Her identity was restored. She began working as a counselor for survivors of trafficking. Quietly, carefully. No headlines. Just healing. She didn't ask to speak at conferences. She didn't want applause. She said she'd done enough hiding in silence. Now she wanted to help others find their voice, even if she never used hers again in public. As for David, he disappeared from the media within weeks. There were headlines, of course. Exposés. His face across television screens with the word mastermind in bold below it. But as quickly as he had risen, he vanished beneath the weight of what he'd built. And now the world would only remember him for what he truly was. A predator in a suit. He reached out once. A handwritten letter, mailed through a third party before the trial. Sarah intercepted it before it ever reached me. She read it, then burned it. It was a trap, she told me. Beautifully written. Full of apologies. Blame. Sentences designed to pull you back in. He nodded. I never needed to read it. He's already said everything he ever meant. And that was true. Because silence can be loud. And absence, when it's built on lies, is sometimes louder than any scream. Tyler asked me once, not long after, will I become like him? Stopped me cold. I knelt down and looked him in the eye. No, you won't. But I have his blood, he said. You have mine too, I told him. And you have your choice. His lips pressed together, thinking hard, and then he nodded. Okay. He never brought it up again. I didn't need to keep reminding him. Because he reminded me, every single day, by being kind, by protecting his sister, by helping Rachel carry groceries, by holding the door open for strangers. That boy is nothing like the man who fathered him. He is something better. He is something new. It was nearly a year later when I stood on a stage for the first time. Quiet auditorium. Small crowd. Survivors, mothers, sisters. No cameras. No reporters. Just people who had lived through something and were still standing. I didn't give them statistics. I didn't quote legal victories. I told them a story. About a woman who thought she had everything. About a message written in blood. About children watching their mother choose courage over silence. And at the end I didn't say, "Be your own light." I said, "You already are." They stood and clapped. Some wept. Some smiled. Some just sat still, breathing in what it meant to be believed. I wasn't trying to change the world that day. I was trying to remind it that truth lives longer than fear. On the anniversary of my father's death, we went back to the garden he loved. Just the three of us. Me, Emma, Taylor. We laid lilies on the bench dedicated in his name. We read the plaque aloud. For the man who protected others even when it cost him everything. Emma looked up at me. Did Grandpa know how brave he was? Smiled. I think he knew. But I think he hoped we'd be brave too. And we were. Not all at once. Not without pain. But step by step, we built something new from the ruins of everything David tried to burn down. Family. Truth. Legacy. One not of wealth or control, but of strength, of honesty, and of the light my mother told me I'd always had. And now I pass that light to my children. Not to carry as a burden, but to share as a beacon. Because we don't run from the dark anymore. We shine through it. Together. Months later, life didn't return to what it was. It became something entirely different. Quieter, yes. Simpler. But also more real. There were no more catered brunches or charity luncheons with people who smiled too wide and asked nothing meaningful. Instead, there were school runs and muddy shoes and late-night laughter over badly burnt pancakes. There were therapy sessions and journals filled with questions, and family dinners where no one pretended to be okay if they weren't. We had survived a man who lived to control others. Now we were learning how to live free. I started writing again. Not reports or polite holiday letters, but my story. Or story. At first, it was for Emma and Tyler, something they could read when they were older. Something to explain not just what happened but why I fought, why I stayed, why I left, why I finally stood. But the words didn't stop there. I wrote for the women who hadn't escaped yet. For the ones still buried in lies. For the ones who still thought they were crazy or overreacting or too emotional. I wrote the words I wish someone had told me the first time I felt like I was being slowly erased. And eventually, the words reached further than I expected. Emails came in. Messages. Survivors from other cities, even other countries. Women who had never said the truth out loud before. Fathers who suspected something was wrong in their daughters' marriages. Sisters who recognized the signs. Daughters who didn't know how to forgive themselves for staying too long. I didn't have all the answers. But I had lived through the questions. And that was enough. Jennifer and I started a foundation. Quietly, no headlines, no press. Just a network of legal support, housing assistance, and financial literacy for women rebuilding their lives. Rachel joined as an advisor. She spoke once, a private event, just 30 people, but what she said stayed with me. My sister didn't save herself because she was lucky. She saved herself because she started believing her instincts instead of apologizing for them. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop explaining your pain. One rainy afternoon, as I picked Emma up from art class, she handed me a folded piece of paper with a proud grin. "I made this for you." I opened it slowly. It was a drawing, crayon on thick white paper. House with flowers. "You're our light, Mom," she said, the same words she'd whispered years ago. And this time I didn't feel the weight of them. Felt the warmth. Because it wasn't just my light anymore. It was theirs. And together we weren't just shining. We were leading others out of the dark.